Alright, I appreciate you guys watching, man. This here's some pink foam. There's a lot better tutorials on YouTube than what I'm doing here. I'm just doing this case to help somebody out, and I decided to do the recording of the process of this while I was doing the actual project. What I'm trying to do here is create some walls that are themed to Masters of the Universe, Castle Greyskull, just for maybe some background props or something like that. That's all this is, really. It's not a big deal. It's just pink foam that you can get from this hardware store. And I went in with the heat gun accessory, not a heat gun accessory, a heat wire gun accessory with the needle on it. You'll see it later in the video. But here, I just went in and drew some stone on the wall, on the board, and went in and cut it out with the needle, the hot wire needle. And here I'm just taking some aluminum foil and pushing it down into the foam where it adds some depth to the actual stone itself, so it doesn't look so natural. It's kind of like the natural look is unnatural, I guess. But I'll pop in and out. I appreciate you guys watching and tell you what I'm doing. And thanks again. Back here, I'm just adding some foam to hold this thing up, because that little archway I got from work, they were throwing them away, so I got a whole box of these arches. I bring them home. I'm just putting some extra foam on the back so it stabilizes, so I don't have to prop it up every time I use it. It just stands up by itself. Here's the needle gun I was talking about. I call it the needle gun, heat gun, wire gun, whatever you want to call it. Here I'm making my holes for the bolts that I got from outside my garage. I decided to make it look like an old pier type of thing, where a piece made the stone one color and the actual balcony out of wood. Got this piece of foam from a piece of furniture that we bought a few weeks ago, and it's just an L looking piece of foam. I thought it'd be perfect, but in a minute here I'm going to switch over to something else, and I'll tell you about that when I get there. I just didn't like the look of this for some reason. It just didn't work for me. Here's that other piece of foam that I was talking about. I just went with basically pink foam. This was a piece of foam that I left over for a different project that I never got to do or wanted to do, or kind of pushed to the back burner. So I'm going here with a wire brush to make it look like old wood grain. Real old, really like abandoned type 1960s kind of wood on the side of a abandoned warehouse somewhere that been sitting abandoned for years. So that's the kind of look I was going for. I wasn't going for the actual wood grain type, because to scale, it wouldn't look right if I made it any bigger than I thought it was. And here's the top piece that I'm going to finish off the top of this piece of wall, you want to call it, with a piece of wood as well. So there you go. Got some wood grain with some wire brush, getting ready to put it together and just bolt it together and check it out. Here we go. And right now I'm going right into maybe I didn't have to do this and I could just use hot glue, but I decided to put my own dowels in there because I want to have a figure maybe standing on this. If I'm doing it for some reason in the background, I can set a figure there. I don't want it to fall apart. So I'm really trying to put this thing together where it could go the longevity of just being moved around and stuff put on it and everything like that. So that's the idea. I'm using a classic green here for the actual primary color. Here I'm using just a cheap black paint. It's Apple Barrel. It's like $3 for like 5 ounces, and I'm mixing in some Hod Podge. Hod Podge I didn't know until I started looking myself. If you mix it all together, it preserves it a little better, so it doesn't chip as easy, or if you scratch it, it kind of gives it kind of a sturdy, like stain type of thing, like you would put on the floor. It's a little shinier than I want it to be, but I also hit it with some matte stuff at the end of this project. I threw some matte clear coat, just sprayed on there lightly, didn't spray it on there heavily. Just go in there. This is the part that's more tedious than everything. You have to get in all the. I went pretty deep with the stone joints, so I don't know, man. That just took forever. So I just got a household brush that usually you paint your house with, and I just went with it and just kept globbing it on there. Be careful about globbing it on there, because if you get you don't want your grout joints to be filled up with excess paint. So just you'd have to go in there and be careful of that and use a small brush to get the small excess paint out of the grout joints. Here I'm going back with that classic green and I'm going over top of it, just dry brushing, taking my time. Kind of using a small brush for this project, but that's the biggest one I had. I didn't want to use a household brush. What I'm doing is going with the classic green over top of it one time into the color where I needed it to be. Then after I was done that, I went in with a true green, bright. You can see it in the corner of the screen right there, like a true green, and went over top of it very lightly to get the color I needed for some more highlights. And that's the finished product right there. Here we're going some raw umber over top of the black, trying to do some wood stuff here. Some wood effect, and I decided, like, look at me, I already messed up. My first couple strokes I messed up here. I went too deep with the raw umber. I wanted to do a little more of a dry brushing because I want to leave some of the black in the background to make it look like it was a really aged piece of wood. I'm not really good at natural stuff, man, yet, or maybe not ever, but the actual natural look of things like sand, stone, and wood is just kind of a weakness for me, so I kind of cheated on this one, just made it black and made it look real scratchy, and then went over top of it as best I could, but it turned out better than I anticipated it would for what I can do and the size of the scale. Now, if I was really going to do some actual woodwork, that'd have to be some other stuff that I have to maybe learn later down the line. But this one here, for what I was using this piece for, the wire brush and this real like dry brushing over top of this thing seemed to work out for me. Now we're going to get ready to do some territorial beige right here. And after I use the territorial beige, after I did that, the same thing, rinse and repeat. Dry brush it in, try to keep your dark spots in the background, or black spots or shadowy spots in the background, or the aged wood effect in the background, whatever you want to call it. After I did that, I went into some classic caramel, I believe it was. I'll show you here in a minute. But yeah, just dry brush it. Just go up and down against a grain and just dry brush it until you get to where you need to be in the color that you desire. Okay, we're almost done this wall now. Here I am putting the bolts through. Make sure that my holes weren't too big or too small. And we're just going to start assembling this thing. And after I'm done this, there's a whole bunch of touch up with these type of things, man. So don't worry about it if you get towards the end of the project and you think, oh man, what am I going to do? What are we going to do? You know, you can always go back and touch it up. And that right there, I'm holding that archway, that piece of metal. I was thinking about going, I still can. I don't think I'm going to do it. I don't know if I want to do it or not. That archway probably needs some stone over top of it so it looks like a framed archway. But I don't know. I think I'm going to leave it like this for now, see how it looks. And if it bothers me later, I'll put some stone where you can hide that crack there between the archway and the actual foam. The foam actually moved around. There's nothing I could do. It was a tight fit at first, but to hide that little hole right there between the archway piece of metal and the actual foam, you can always put stone around it as most archways do on a building, but I'm not worried about it right now. Right here, I'm starting to eye all this up. I'm putting, like I said, getting ready to assemble it. And what I did was I went in here and I glued it up pretty good. Made my holes first with the iron needle, and then I went and put my dowel rods in. You don't probably have to go as deep as I did with this stuff, but I don't know. I put all kinds of dowel rods and bolt this thing together because I'm going to be moving around a lot. Alright, that one's complete after putting that top piece on that I scratched out earlier with a wire brush. Now I'm getting ready to assemble the second part. This is a smaller part of the walls. I didn't make it as big. I didn't want them too big, especially because the reason for space in my house and everything else. Here's where I got lazy, where I took that concrete slab and I made it too bright with the gray. So I thought to myself, why not I get some pastel black and just rub it on there with a sponge and see what would happen. I'm not saying I came up with this. I had no clue. I just didn't feel like painting it black again and then doing it over again. I should have dry brushed it with a lighter gray instead of going solid gray. So I went in there and I smudged it around, added some more pastel. It worked out pretty good. I just wanted to look dingy, and I just wanted the piece of the rock, the actual slab part of the rock, looked like it was weathered. And to tell you the truth, the pastel worked out pretty good. I like it. I'll probably use it later down the road. It was better than starting over, painting it all over black again and going back and dry brushing it again. So if you want an easy way out, I'm not saying I made this part up. I'm sure this has been done 1,000 times. I just don't know. The only thing that came to my mind was actually, like I said, throwing some black pastel on a sponge and rubbing it all over the concrete, supposedly slab that you're making for any project. Well, that's about it. Here's where I'm putting the last pieces together. I didn't use no dowel rods on this one. I just glued this one all together. It's a real light piece, real kind of like straightforward piece. Not really heavy, not a big deal. So I just went in there and got it done and glued it all together, and that's all she wrote. I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate anybody that stuck around. I appreciate any feedback, and I hope this helped anybody out in the future projects. I know I always look at tutorials that, I wouldn't think would help me, but a lot of it has. And just keep doing your customs, man. Keep creating shit and blow it up. I did put some. I went crazy with the dowel rods right here. I went to the back part of the slab and put some dowel rods in. Well, homemade dowel rods. I don't know why I went that deep, but I did. But thanks again for watching, guys. I appreciate everything.